Oh, well, this is a little bit different. Hi there, I'm Talon Lee. Once upon a time I used to write for Star City Games, where I got onto the scene by opening with an article about how every person in the casual room with more money than me was a jerk. Not a position I'm entirely proud of anymore, even if I have sort of come around to the position that there is such a thing as a person having too much money. Anyway, it's silverboarded season, and Sheldon Menery, the absolute madman, has decided that it's time to encourage people to do something fun and cool by making an official ruling on it. That is to say, silverboarded cards are, until the new year, available and legal for use in Elder Dragon Highlander, a casual format for casual play, in which no one is forcing you to do anything, so calm down. Anyway, I'm one of the only human beings I know who had the money and the lack of common sense at the time to pay for a box of Unhinged, which I drafted, and it wasn't very good. But the point is, I have the experience, an experience that many of you do not have, and for that reason, I'm going to be offering my expertise on 10 silver-bordered cards I recommend that you give a shot in your Elder Dragon Highlander decks while we are in this middle space of madness. Before we proceed, however, I want to give a quick bit of advice regarding some of the other cards that you could be playing. There are some unhinged or unglued cards that you may look at and think, oh, this will totally be worth jamming into a deck, and then finding out afterwards that the play environment that they lead to sucks. First up, there are the minigame cards from Unhinged, like Eye to Eye and Face to Face. These cards are overcosted even when you win them. They're not actually very good. They're not worth it, and unless you can guarantee you're going to win the game every time, they're not actually that useful as cards. Worse, you are kind of pulling someone into a type of game that they might not be in for. If you can really handle side to side, odds are good you're the player at the table who's strongest and beefiest, in which case, it's just kind of a jerk move to pick on other people. Second, almost every card with gotcha sucks. It discourages people from talking. No one wants to slip up and give you an advantage. This is especially true for the overwhelmingly strong name dropping, where if any player mentions the name of a spell you used, you can pick it up. This is the kind of thing that can allow for some really thoughtless combo interactions, where certain cards can wind up getting things back into your hand, and it's just a bad scene, and players who want to avoid giving you an overwhelming advantage will shut the whole thing down by just shutting up. The same thing is true of censorship and cards like it. You don't want to discourage people from having fun. You don't want to discourage people from talking to one another. When you sit down to play a casual game of Magic, you are trying to play with your friends. This is something of a contentious argument for people who really enjoy playing Storm. Finally, half damages and half mana. Look, if your playgroup is focused on using dice to track life totals, do not include any half damage stuff. If you've got the people who use pads and paper, alright, maybe it's okay, but it still kinda sucks. For the most part, the half damage increments aren't really worth it. It's from an earlier time in Magic's history when we didn't really have a good grasp on what made a creature good enough and how good a body could be for the mana you were paying, and that means that half damage just winds up complicating people's life trackers and makes life annoying for everyone in combat. Broadly speaking, you're not going to be playing these cards for their raw power, you're going to be playing them for fun or funny things they let you do. So, just avoid these cards that, for better or worse, are traps. So here are 10 silver-bordered cards that I recommend you giving a shot in your EDH decks. Archons Run! This is already on the watch list for the EDH Council. It's obviously a very powerful effect. The biggest concern it's got is that it lets you lose effects out of your deck over time. My personal favorite thing to combine this with is Blitz Hellion, which is a 7/7 for 5 with trample and haste that vomits itself out of your library every turn, smacks someone, then goes away. It's just big enough that paying Archons Run's mana for it is actually pretty reasonable, and it's not going to lose a lot of fights. You can also use Archons Run as a sort of utility thing to get a whole bunch of hasty things, or creatures that want to return to your hand at the end of turn. There are lots of ways to use Archons Run in a way that doesn't deplete your deck of all of its threats, and also doesn't screamingly obviously make you a danger to the table. Who, what, where, when, why, which, wibbly wobble. This is almost obvious too. This is a silver-bordered cube available all-star. It's the ultimate utility spell. If you could pay the mana, it gives you a pretty good version of whatever effect it is you wanted to deal with. There's nothing remarkable to say about this card. It's just everything you could ever want on a reasonable package. Blast from the Past. Now, this one's a bit of an oddball. For 1 and double red, you can play this card as a cantrip shock, which is just really good right there. But that's not where it ends. You can also kicker it at 6 mana to get yourself a cantrip shock and a goblin, which isn't quite so exciting, but still not terrible. Or you can spend a fairly disgusting 8 mana, shock something, draw a card, and get it back into your hand. That right there is kinda nice. The nature of this card being so flexible means you can also, in the early game, use it to bolt something, flash it back, get the kicker out of it, and, that's all nice too. The nature of Blast from the Past is much like Who, Where, What, Which, Where, Why, in that it's just good. It's one of the most obvious silver-bordered cards to try out because it's just really good. The only thing it has that's remarkable about it is the sheer amount of mana you need to pour into it, and this is EDH, where games go long and mana pools tend to get big. Urza's Contact Lens. It's an artifact that makes you play with your hand revealed, and it can be tapped and untapped at will as long as you are willing to clap. Problem with this card is everyone playing with their hand revealed means that everyone is playing with as much information as they possibly can. This will slow games down. So, if you're playing with Urza's Contact Lenses, play them where they will win the game immediately. They cost no mana. You don't need to run them out there for any sort of mana advantage, and incorporating them into the play so you can work out what's in your opponent's hands is probably going to go nowhere for you. It slows everything down, everyone wants to make the best decisions they can based on the cards that they can see, and they can all tell that you're running this as a combo piece as well. So, keep the lenses in your hand until the time comes to blow up the world. Hungry Heifer. I played with a card called Chisei, Heart of Oceans, back during Kamigawa era, and I played with alongside cumulative upkeep cards, a few of which we got in Cold Snap. Now, this wasn't actually good, but it was interesting. Hungry Heifer lets you do the same thing in not blue. Necro Impotence. Look, I've tried it, I've played with it myself. It's interesting, but the thing that makes it interesting is bouncing it to your hand every turn. There are a couple of effects that let you do this, one of my favorites being Cloudstone Curio, that let you hop a card from the battlefield into your hand. Necro Impotence is triple black, pay X life, draw X times 2 cards, then find some way to get rid of Necro Impotence. Even if you just sacrifice the Necro Impotence in some way, it's still a really good card drawing spell that you can throw in, and it makes everyone around the table go, penis jokes. Tobby Kong. I wanted this effect in Standard. I played in Mirrodin. I wanted to see this thing hit the table in Standard. Still, Tobby Kong is one of those wonderful EDH scale-up effects. Often a single pop your artifact creature isn't going to get the job done because there are just too many things that need to get destroyed. Tobby Kong takes his time getting here, but once he gets here, he wrecks house. There are some better versions of this effect right now, but you can get a lot of mileage out of the big guy, and you can cheat him out with a whole bunch of different effects like Court of Calling, and if you've got any other apes, you can get an engine going that generates you a whole bunch of extra apes. This isn't to say anything about the card is exciting, beyond being an enormous beatstick, but I like it. You can also combine it with any other ape and Intruder Alarm to generate an infinite number of monkeys. And as anyone in the Illawarra area will tell you, you can't really go wrong betting on infinite monkeys. Stop that! This is the only gotcha card on my list, because it's a behavior that players already are consciously aware of wanting to disincentivize. Stop that just lets you poke someone for doing something they're doing that's annoying you, or annoying the table. I wouldn't recommend using it more than once in a game. Just gotchaing it back to remind someone that it exists is usually enough to make them think about what they're doing. But still, it's okay to try out, but don't try and do this kind of social engineering on a long-term sense. You'll wind up annoying your friends more than you'll wind up fixing their habits. And in this corner, MC! I love this card. I love this card beyond all common coherent reason. It is effectively a 3-mana creature that means any other creature you play gets a +1/+1 counter, which realistically speaking isn't actually that good. But the sheer theatre of treating every single card you play as if it's about to enter the battlefield and do something amazing is hilarious, and you can also use those opportunities to draw attention away from what people are doing, relax things a little, and sometimes sneak into the battlefield some kind of thing like a cheaty face. I do not recommend using cheaty face, by the way. It's super annoying. Finally, Bingo. I love this dog. I love this dog in part because the puzzle it presents fascinates me. It cares about the converted mana cost of the cards being played. It doesn't really care that much about whether or not you paid it. And it cares about whenever any player plays a spell. So, first things first, 0-cost artifacts get you a button. Frogmite and Mere Enforcer get you 2 of the numbers in the top row for very little mana. 8/5/3 may be a little harder to get, but there are still some ways around it. And it's a little innocuous 2-drop dog. If you get 3 rows of numbers, and in a multiplayer game, it's not as hard as you think, this becomes a 10/10 beat stick, which is pretty special. What's more, it gets +9/+9 for each set, and it counts diagonals. So hypothetically, if you get all of these rows counted out, that's oh dear God, that's a lot. Sorry, I just tried to do the math there and I fell over somewhere around +81. Point is, Bingo is a great big dog, and if you want to use something that lets you crash into your opponents pretty hard, for only 2 mana, and watch people go, oh no. Anyway, that's 10 cards from the silver-bordered sets of history that I think you should at least give a consideration to trying out in your casual play group. As always, remember that this is just a fun list, and you may find a very different approach to the gotcha cards or cheaty face in your group. I mean, I don't want to play with you, but that's okay. That's okay. And I hope this gets you thinking about ways to use these cards to make your play experience more fun, rather than think about ways to treat other people as if they have to put up with your nonsense.